hour. I'm sure people will continue to jump on as we move along. But hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Claire McLemore, and I am one of the marketing managers on our accounting list. We also have Steve Schutz on the phone, who is our portfolio manager for accounting as well. And then we have two wonderful guests with us today. John Wild. John is a distinguished professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and he's received many teaching awards and is a past KPMG National Fellow. He focuses on teaching introductory financial and managerial accounting courses, and he's published several books, including Fundamental Accounting Principles, Managerial Accounting, and Financial Accounting. We also have Jonathan Wild on the phone with us. He is a CPA and earned his PhD at Oklahoma State University. He currently teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. He teaches courses in financial accounting, managerial accounting, and intermediate accounting. His research focuses on accounting transparency and corporate social responsibility, and he previously worked at PwC in assurance services. So we are thrilled to have them on the phone with us today. I did want to just go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone, it has been turned on mute just to limit some of the background noise. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A on the right-hand side or the chat. If you do choose to use the chat, there's a little drop down where you can choose everyone, and that means your question will go to all of us so we can all make sure that we get your question answered. We'll also be doing some polling questions throughout the presentation, and so we would love your feedback on those. It should pop up on the right-hand side of the panel as well. And lastly, we will be recording the session, so as a follow-up, you will get the recording and the slide deck for you, and that should be coming out within the next week or so. And so, yeah, before we jump in, I just want to kind of do an overview. As I mentioned, John is the author on a few different titles, and so we have a couple different approaches. You have your sole proprietorship approach, which is teaching with capital and withdrawals, and that's our Fundamental Accounting Principles 25E. It has about 65% financial content and 35% managerial. We also have the split of that Principles of Financial Accounting, which is 100% financial, and it's the first 17 chapters of that Fundamental Accounting Principles. Looking at our more corporate approach, we have our Financial and Managerial Accounting split, which is a 50-50 split between financial and managerial. And then we also have the 100% financial title, which is Financial Accounting Fundamentals AE, and Managerial Accounting AE. So those are the splits of the FinMan book. And then we also have Financial Accounting Information for Decisions, which is 100% financial. So we have a lot of different options to fit your needs. And John and Jonathan are going to kind of dig into kind of a standard approach across all these titles and the different resources that are available. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John and Jonathan.
Well, good day, everyone. Today, Jonathan and I are excited to share with you, I guess I'd call it sort of our process of enhancing the textbooks and including emerging technologies as part of the introductory financial and managerial accounting materials. Now, I should mention before Claire loses this page, I currently use in my class these three books, the financial managerial and the two splits, and Jonathan currently uses these right here in his classes this year. Okay, let me go on. So in terms of an agenda, what I'm going to do is there's sort of 5 key goals here. We're going to talk a little bit about the textual content, a bit about the video content, and also the inclusion of these emerging technologies, which will primarily involve data analytics and Excel and Tableau. Now, our entire discussion today is actually framed by what I would call the evolution initiative that we see in accounting education right now, primarily driven by the AICPA and NASBA, but nonetheless, it seems to be perpetuating many different disciplines in accounting, where the real theme there is twofold, and that is we want to make sure we teach students relevant content. And in fact, not only that we teach it, but in fact, they learn it. So a lot of things we'll be talking about in the next few minutes will focus on the learning part of the relevant content. And then the second big push is the technology push. And again, that's driven by all our disciplines. You can see that over here in the AICPA. They mentioned the technology component as a big part of the core, and it perpetuates into the 3 different disciplines. So again, technology will be at least 40% of our discussion today. So I'm going to jump right in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the textual content itself and how it's evolved over the past couple editions. We'd like to begin right now with a poll question that Claire's going to ask.
Yes, so the first poll question we have is, do many of your introductory accounting students find textual content challenging? If you could answer yes or no, and let me go ahead and get the poll running.
That should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Yes, they do find it challenging. No, they do not. And Claire, you can interrupt. I'm just going to continue. So as a backdrop to this whole thing of textual content, we looked at learning science to guide us in this process, and we used education research along with design research. And both are relevant. This is the more traditional. This is the more innovative current research. So in an educational sense, what I'd like to point out, there's a lot of things I can point out, but one is this so-called learning pyramid. And we don't want to get picky with the percentages, but what it does tell us is the more we can use audio-visual aids, the more we can use demonstrations in our classroom, the more we can do practice by doing, and even teaching others in our classroom, in our active classroom, the more students walk away with retaining the information that we conveyed. The other side of the coin is the design research, and that talks about how we should lay out our content. And importantly, they talked about a block content, and that block should be organized by takeaways. And the reason that is because of this Google learning effect that they've noted for our students in the last 20 years. And I'll talk about that just a minute. Within each of these blocks, they want us to be direct, concise, and systematic. So when we do our revisions, we're looking for this blocking content and also this DCS, direct, concise, systematic. All of our blocks should end with a demo. Again, you and I, if we're looking to how to make a cup of coffee with our new maker, we would prefer to have a demo than have 2 pages of text describing how to do it. And then similarly at the end, education research talks about the importance of reinforcing that knowledge for our students. So we're going to employ this sort of backdrop both in our textual and video and our analytics and emerging technology discussion today.
Hey, John.
Yeah. Yes, Claire.
I have the results, and 100% of people said yes, that their students find textual content challenging.
I share that view. It's tough sometimes to get them to read it, let alone comprehend all of it. And that's going to orient us into why we're doing what we're doing right here. Now, as a big overview, I'm going to give you a little preview where we're headed. So again, remember this notion of block content driven by design research and education. Everything should be blocked, direct, concise, systematic, and then the reinforcement, don't forget, over here on the right. So just sort of keep that visual in your mind, and let's walk through these individual components. First of all, in terms of the block content, it's more than just an outline. We've had outlines for more than a decade. In fact, over here, I just grabbed the capital budgeting one, and you can see the capital budgeting starts out with a general orientation. Then it has the non-present value and the present value methods. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not organized by the way design research tells us to do that for students today. Instead, design research will tell us to step back as an instructor and say, what do we want our students to take away? And what is important for them to be able to, quite frankly, search on and map their educational content? And what we came up with, well, the primary takeaways for this particular chapter for the students are the 4 different capital budgeting and investment tools, namely payback period, rate of return, net present value, and internal rate of return. And that's the way it's broken down. So there's the block structure in action. Much different than the old outline approach. It's based so students can actually search. That's that Google learning coming into play, that if they're having trouble with net present value, all they have to go to is this block right here, and everything is self-contained. Now, within each of those blocks, remember the DCS, direct, concise, systematic. Each of these blocks, we have to go through and systematically as authors and as a team, looked for ways we can make that more direct to the students, more concise and systematic. And I'll give you examples here in just 30 seconds. You'll also notice at the bottom, each one of these blocks have what's called a need to know. That's the NTK, the acronym, but it's a need to know for block 1, block 2, block 3, so on. And again, that's the importance of the demonstration that we talked about in the traditional educational arena. And the whole book is now entirely oriented that way. Now, to give you examples of each one, I'll be pretty quick here, but direct, people normally say cut to the chase, right? And they oftentimes, when it comes to textual content in education, they'll talk about bullet pointed, be very direct, and you introduce visuals. And here's a typical example. We have a paragraph here of how you move from transactions to financial reports. This is in chapter 2 of the financial materials. Very simple stuff, but notice now it's moved into this kind of presentation. Simple introductory paragraph. Here are the bullet points along with visuals to capture those 4 different bullet points. Much different kind of presentation. Very direct. Students don't have to search for things. It's laid out right here. Here are the steps, and then here are the visuals that go with that. Let me give you another example. This one here is from managerial and has to do with segment elimination analysis. So this was the old table that was in there at the top here on the previous edition. Students had to look at avoidable and unavoidable expenses, which they must do. But they don't give the answer from this table. They have to sort of get these numbers and then apply it to whether or not we eliminate that segment or not. What we do down here is we reconfigured that table and focus on variable and fixed costs. And we also set it up so that here's the continuation one, here's the elimination one, and the difference. If it's negative, you continue with it. If it's positive, you would eliminate it. And here we go. It's very direct. Students don't have to search for things, apply things after the fact. So we're off and running. Again, we do this every page of the entire textual content on our materials. Concise, that's the second one, right? Direct and then concise. This is an example of applying net present value. And we look again, every table, every textual paragraph. This table, nothing wrong with it. This old table is fine. However, if we apply conciseness, it would say, well, we have 8 years here. Do we need 8 years? And we run through that analysis, you find out, well, we need 3 or more. So let's go with 3. Much less intimidating presentation for students to deal with 3. Plus with the visual, you see how cumbersome this long one is? Here, they immediately can see the salient points. These 3, along with the net present value factor, out pops the net present value itself. So again, we've been applying direct and now concise throughout. This one here is interesting. This one is one of the more difficult topics for my students. That's equivalent units of production. And this is using FIFO. And you can see on the left-hand side is the old one. And nothing wrong with it. Text for direct materials, text for conversion in the table. If we apply direct and concise, we came up with a different presentation. Namely, we had direct set up right here. We have conversion set up right here. And notice for each of the following the direct layout, if we can introduce this kind of text into a bullet framework, notice those bullets exactly correspond to the lines. This one to this one, this one to this one. And similarly over here, for the conversion side, these link over here. In fact, by using direct and concise, we actually had room to introduce a visual. And here's the visual capturing the FIFO flow of goods when you use equivalent units of production. Again, all in the interest of enhancing learning for our students. One other point before I leave this, to capture the notion of direct and concise, the notion is we want to have the same content, right? But fewer pages and a more direct presentation too, all in the interest of more learning. Everything we're doing here is all about enhancing the learning of our students through this textual content. And you can see that with the principles book, we lopped off 13% over the last 2 editions. And with the combination book, financial and managerial, we similarly lost 13%, 12% from managerial, 14% from financial. Again, less is more here because we didn't just cut, but we cut very direct and concisely. And we leaned on the pyramid and leaned on science to help us, again, all in the interest of enhancing learning. I should say these drops in percentages, all with recognizing that we have over 200 new assignments in the current edition relative to 2 editions ago. Last item, remember within the block, we have direct, concise, systematic. So the systematic structure, I'm going to use the overhead budget from managerial as an example here. Nothing wrong with this budget, and we have text following the budget nicely. I think it's pretty concise. Nevertheless, when we applied systematic, it would say anytime we get an opportunity, if we can tell our students here's step 1, step 2, step 3, or A, B, C, let's do it. This was a natural one to do it. So we took the same text up here and we introduced 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that's the variable, the fixed, and the total. And in addition, we took the opportunity to put this in the margin. 1, variable overhead, links right to here. 2, we link it right here, and so on. It's an opportunity, again, to enhance learning by making that structure very systematic. Let's go a little bit further. So now we have the block structure. We had the DCS in the middle, direct, concise, systematic, and now we have the reinforcement at the end. Now, for the reinforcement part, it's twofold. We have the need-to-know demo. Now, as I mentioned, there's need-to-know demos at the end of each block, but importantly, in this new edition, we've also added a comprehensive need-to-know for each individual chapter. Again, those are with audio and video. In fact, all the comprehensive need-to-knows, I did that with Jonathan's help. Now, we also have the summary cheat sheets. Nice, cute name. But if you remember in the old days, we used to have something like this. That's many of us learned this way. We got to the end of a chapter, layout learning object, a lot of text. Learning science tells us this is not helpful for students. Rather, what we should do is have graphical, visual, key information conveyed to them to mimic what's in the text. And you can see over here, this is from the merchandising chapter. We have the difference between service and merchandising firms. That was a big deal. How costs flow through a merchandising enterprise. We have key journal entries. We have key elements of who controls the ownership as goods flow through the system. And then key definitions like credit terms and so forth. Much different layout. In fact, some of our instructors who are using this now, they start with the summary cheat sheet, and then they also reinforce it at the end before they jump into the chapter. It's like a pre-introduction, if you will. So again, oh, Claire, you had a poll question?
Yes. So the next poll question is, do you feel your students could benefit from these learning science advances along with the summary cheat sheets? I'm going to go ahead and open that up for you. And John, I'll interrupt you as soon as I have the results.
Great. A if it's yes, B if it's no.
Well, you know, before you even go on, it's almost at 100% yes. So
then you share my enthusiasm. Again, we can't claim any credit other than we've implemented learning science, innovative ideas in our current content. And hopefully, you know, cross our fingers, we'll reap those benefits in class. Again, remember block structure, DCS, and then don't forget the reinforcement mapping. Okay, second big thing today of 4, data visualization, which is part of, again, the evolution project. And this data visualization, as you know, is part of data analytics. Data analytics is a general term. It breaks into the analytics part, which tends to be referred to as more of the processing part, the inspecting, cleansing, transforming, modeling data. And then there's the graphical part, which is the representation of data for insights and analysis. That's oftentimes referred to as the more critical thinking, decision-making part of data analytics. So I'm going to give you one survey. This is from Select Hub of roughly 600 executives, and they were asking what do we demand, what do we want out of our students that you and I are pumping out right now. And you can see the top 3 items, which was somewhat comforting for me and probably you too, is third was reporting. Well, we do that anyway, so we don't have to change anything. But notice number 1 and 2 was comfort with dashboard, comfort with visualization, understanding that. Well, I think, and you look at those totals too, 80 to 90%. Even reporting was down here about 50, and the other ones were down here even lower in terms of, still important, but not recognized anywhere near this level of demand. The other thing is 2 weeks ago, we had a AICPA webcast that was on September 24th. And the head of their director of examinations, this is for the CPA exam, Richard Gallagher, said the following: we need to assess data analytics, no doubt. And we have come up with alternative ways to do that by virtue of presentations, whether they be tables, whether they be visualizations. So we have figured out ways around actually having a tool to use to do that. So in other words, they're testing data analytics in the CPA exam now in the foreseeable future, not with Tableau, not with Excel, not with Power BI, but rather with visualizations. And so you're right on the cutting edge if you're using visualizations in your class right now. Let's go. Oh, Claire, you have a poll question. Go ahead.
Yes, another poll question. So for your introductory accounting course, you are either A, not looking to add data visualizations, or B, looking to add data visualizations. I have just opened it up for you.
Okay. And Claire, interrupt when you have something.
I will.
Now, as a backdrop to the visualizations, we talked about the survey, but in terms of research, 3 things that I found extremely interesting, and I want to share it with you. One result is our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than text, the power of visualization. Infographics are 30 times more likely to be read by our students than text. Again, the power of visuals. And finally, 90% of information transmitted to our brains today is visual. So you can see where the world is headed, right? And why data visualization has become so important. Let me talk about the innovative, what we consider innovative dashboard activities for our class. Claire, did you have some results, by the way? I should have given you a chance.
Yeah, 88% people said that they are looking to add visualizations, and 12% said they were not.
Okay, great. So here's what we did. We've been burned in the past with introducing new emerging technology in the classroom, and we wanted to not have that again. So number 1, we had some checklist items. And the first was there's no add-on project. Secondly, there's no analytics training required. That's just as much for us as it is for the students. Again, my students are coming right out of pretty much basically high school, and they don't have any analytical training for the most part. No added software, big deal. Anytime have students download Tableau or Excel, I get loads of questions on technology. I don't want that. That's not what I'm here to teach. So no software required. And then finally, auto-gradable and in Connect. So we'll see where we're headed. What we decided to do is we have loads of data and textual displays in our materials right now. All of us do in our classroom. Here's an example on manufacturing with direct materials, direct labor, so forth, and we're have to compute standard cost. And what we've done is we've taken and we put that data, that textual materials in a dashboard. And here's an example of one of those dashboards. And then we're going to ask some questions. The same questions we're going to ask in exercise 23-8 is going to be asked over here under this dashboard. And what that enables us to do is swap these out. Now, those dashboards, we have roughly 100 of those dashboards right now. They're at 3 different levels. One is quick study, which is primarily focused on can they read visualizations? Can they pull the data that we ask them to pull? Then they have exercises, which are primarily applying the data, take it to another step, using that data to compute some number like standard costs or uncollectible accounts. And then finally, many cases, carrying it even another step forward, interpreting and making decisions out of the information that's in those dashboards. So Jonathan will take it from here and we'll demonstrate those Tableau dashboards right now.
Great. So Claire, if you can allow me to share my screen, I'll jump right into my Connect course. All right, perfect. All right. So what I'm doing here is I jumped right into my Connect course. And what I want to show you is the evolution of my course over the past couple of years, in that I've started taking traditional Connect assignments and swapping them with Tableau dashboard activities that are going to cover the same exact accounting concepts. So let me show you some examples, okay? So here's an example of a traditional assignment in which students are given total assets equal to 700,000, equity equal to 420,000, and they're asked to solve for liabilities. Okay, so what accounting concept are we teaching our students here? the accounting equation. Okay, so this is probably an example of an assignment. We probably all assign maybe in the first week of our classes. And now what I did with that assignment, again, just in the last couple of years, is I've taken that traditional one, swapped it with the Tableau dashboard activity that's also going to ask my students a question on the accounting equation. So before we get into the accounting side of this, let me just explain a little bit how these Tableau dashboard activities work, and it's really cool. So full disclaimer here, I don't have Tableau installed on my machine, but this is a live Tableau dashboard activity running live in Connect. So if your students, and at least in my class, if my students can open up Connect on their computers, whether it be a Mac, PC, Chromebook, whatever, they can run these Tableau dashboard activities. I'm not acting as tech support, nothing like that. They can run it, no problem. So that's great in my class.
Jonathan,
Now
can
let's
you
look
go
at the
full
accounting
screen?
part of it.
Can you go full screen?
Go full screen.
John, it's looking perfect to me.
Yeah, it
Full
should
screen.
be perfect on my end too.
Okay.
Okay, maybe it's just mine. Sorry.
You're just going to need to be able to scroll down. I mean, if you're, what we're seeing the accounting equation data right now for the three companies.
Okay, terrific.
Material.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. All right, so let's take a look at the accounting stuff here now, okay? So let's look at the accounting equation data. So for Nero's company, we see, and all I'm doing here is taking my cursor and hovering over different parts of this dashboard, and immediately it comes to life. So I'm just hovering my dashboards hovering my cursor over the assets bar, and immediately I get some feedback, right? I see for this one, we want our students to solve for assets. But students are given information on liabilities and equity. We see we have liabilities of 36,000 and equity of 74,000. So what do students do with that data? Well, they come down here and they start answering the question. So in this one, we're asking our students to use the accounting equation data to compute that missing assets amount. So from our graphic, we got liabilities of 36,000. We got equity of 74,000. Now in my class, if my students listen to me in class and heard me talk about the accounting equation, right, they should know that, well, if you add liabilities and equity together, they can compute total assets. So in this case, they'd add them together and they'd get 110,000. Another thing I enable in my class, okay, and this is something you can turn on or off as an instructor, is the check my work button. So I'll just click that there to show you how it works. And the student gets a positive check mark that, yeah, they're on the right course, okay? Another cool thing about that is that all the Tableau dashboard activities that I assign in my course, they're all auto-gradable and filled directly into my gradebook. So I don't know, for some of us who are teaching hundreds of students, I almost teach 100 every year. I just don't have the time or desire to go in and start manually grading different spreadsheets or Tableau projects or anything like that. So here, everything fills right into my gradebook. So that's a huge time saver for me. Another cool thing about these Tableau dashboard activities, something that my students have really latched onto, is that these Tableau dashboard activities not only help me as an instructor assess my students on those key accounting concepts like the accounting equation, but they also visually convey them. So what do I mean by that? Well, again, let's go back to Nero's, and we can see Nero's asset bar height, right? The bar height is of the same bar height as the liabilities and equity bar. So what accounting concept is that conveying to our students? Well, it's that assets equals liabilities plus equity. Okay, and that's in my class for my visual learners, that's a big deal because I'm writing the equation up on the board, they're watching a video, they're reading the ebook, whatever, but now they can actually visually interact with it. So they really like that. Okay, now I'm going to jump a little bit ahead to the accounts receivable chapter, and here's an example of some traditional assignments I've now swapped in my class. And just to be clear too, these traditional assignments aren't going anywhere. So in my class, at least half of my assignments are still these kind of traditional style, but I've again started that process of begun swapping many of these. Okay, so here's a question on the percent of receivables method, and students are given an estimate. They're given some accounts. they come down here and do a journal entry, and then they can do another different journal entry if there's an existing balance, okay? So again, if we're covering accounts receivable, something we're probably covering in our classes. Basically the same assignment, but now we use a percent of sales method. They're given an estimate. They come down here and do a journal entry. Again, third one, aging of receivables. Okay, again, a traditional assignment. They're given information in kind of a table. Okay, they use that information, different categories to come down here, do their estimate, do a journal entry. Now, what I did in my class is I've taken those 3 assignments, traditional assignments, swap them with a Tableau dashboard activity that's going to cover all 3 of those concepts. So here's the Tableau dashboard activity for the accounts receivable chapter. And let's just go down first and see what we want our students to do. Okay, so for the first one, part 1, we're going to ask our students to estimate the allowance for doubtful accounts using the percent of sales method. So if my students listen in my lecture, watch the videos, read the ebook, they're going to know, well, hey, so I'm going to need some information, something to do with sales. So they're coming up here. All right, here we go. Makeup of total sales. Well, we have some cash sales and some credit sales. But again, if students know their accounting concepts, they'll know, well, hey, cash sales, that doesn't have anything to do with collectibles, right? That's cash in hand. But credit sales, right, there's a chance of uncollectibles. So they take that 7.15 million. Again, all I'm doing is hovering my cursor over different graphics. So they take that 7.15 million and they grab percent uncollectible by accounts, and they see, okay, we estimate 1% to be our estimate for uncollectibles of credit sales. So they take their 7.15 million, times it by 1%, and they get 71,500. Again, we can put in there check my work, something you can turn on or off as an instructor, and they get a positive check mark. That fills into my grade book and my course. Perfect. Okay. Let's jump ahead to part 3, requirement 3. Okay. Here we want our students to estimate the allowance for doubtful accounts using the aging of accounts receivable. Okay. And again, if they were in my class, they were listening, hopefully, they'll know, well, hey, I'm going to need accounts receivable broken down into different categories. So they come up here, right, and they'd see, okay, well, here's total accounts receivable, okay, but that's not going to help us. But here we have accounts receivable by age, so perfect. Into 5 different categories. Let's start out with the amount not yet due of 830,000. But again, if students know the aging of accounts receivable method, they'll know they need a percent tied to each of those. So here's a table on percent uncollectible by age. So the estimate then for not yet due, just again, hovering my cursor over different parts of the graphic, is 2%. So they take their 830,000, right, for the amount in that category, times it by their 2% estimate, and they're well on their way to figuring out this question, right? So I think you guys are kind of getting the point now in that these Tableau dashboard activities, they're covering the same exact accounting concepts that we've been teaching for years, right? It's for us as instructors, it's nothing new. And for students, what's different is that instead of as a student going up to look at a paragraph of information or a table of information, instead they're going up to a Tableau dashboard activity, which by interacting with it, they start developing those kind of introductory level skills in data analytics and visualization. And they're also working with Tableau, which as we know is the most popular data visualization tool in business right now. So at the same time they're learning those introductory concepts, they're also developing those skills that our employers want our students to have. So that's cool. All right, so let's jump ahead again. So now I'm jumping ahead to the financial statement analysis chapter. Depends on, you might cover that in financial or in managerial. Either way, it works great. And so I really like this graphic. And this one, a company breaks down its financial data into different regions of the United States. And so for this one, we're going to ask students to compute profit margin for the West region and Southwest region. So again, if my students know profit margin, if they read the book and they listen to me in class, they'll know to get profit margin, they need to take net income for the West region and divide it by net sales. So they take that 22,000, that 110,000, divide those two numbers, and that would give them about 20%. Same thing for the Southwest region. Again, they come up here. If they know the profit margin, they know to ignore those distractors there too. So they get net income of 17,600 divided by net sales of 80,000. They come down here and that would give them about 22%. They can do check my work against something we can turn on or off as an instructor, and that fills right into my grade book. Okay, perfect. Another cool thing about the dashboards, in my class, I'll assign exercise and mini case level assignments. And in those assignments in my course, they include kind of some, I would call it analysis portions of the question. But what I mean by analysis is I'm not talking about intermediate advanced level analysis where they're doing some advanced pivot tables or some kind of programming or anything like that. It's all introductory accounting analysis. So what do I mean by that? Let's look at an example. So for part 2, we asked students in which region examined in part 1 has the company best performed on profit margin. So again, if students were listening in class, maybe watch my videos, right? They'll see, they'll know that, well, a company would prefer a higher profit margin. So we go back to requirement 1 and we see, well, the Southwest region had the better profit margin. So they come down here, type that in, okay, auto grades, fills right into my grade book. So let me jump ahead again here. Okay, so now I'm jumping courses all the way to managerial accounting. So when I teach managerial accounting, I have these dashboards all over the course as well, several for every chapter, okay? So in this one, the students are given beginning materials, they're given ending raw materials inventory, they're given purchases, and we ask them to compute materials used. So a very key kind of managerial accounting relation, right? Something we're probably teaching them again in the first week of our course. So now what I did, I took that traditional assignment and I swapped it again with the Tableau dashboard activity that's again going to visually convey that accounting concept. So let's look at this one here. Okay, so we have materials, a beginning amount of 60,000. We have purchases of 140,000. We're asking students to solve for materials used, and they're giving ending raw materials. So again, we talk about that key managerial relation, right? But now students can actually visualize it in that the bar width here is of the same bar width as materials used in ending materials. So again, very cool for some of my visual learners. One last managerial example, okay? Here we have inventory levels, okay? And here we can see for this company, you can see how we have the classic managerial accounts, right? Raw materials, work in process, finished goods. And we can see from November and December, we can see increase in inventory accounts. So students can immediately get some key inferences from that. And, you know, if that data was provided, let's say in a paragraph, it may not have been immediately obvious to a student. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over.
All right, John, you should be able to reshare your screen. All righty. Thank you, Jonathan.
You went on mute too as well, just to remind you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, we are going to do another poll question. So for your introductory accounting course, the Tableau dashboard activities that Jonathan just showed you are too much for your students, just about right, or too easy?
Okay, and Claire, you'd let us know when you have some results?
Yep.
Sorry?
Oh, I said will do.
Okay, here's what I did when we developed these. We started out, and if you want to do that, you could even do it this term yet, is start out with an extra credit dashboards. That's an easy, low-cost way of getting started with these dashboards, see how they work with your class. I'm at what I'd call level 2, where I now swap out about 20 to 25% of my assignments that historically were in my class are now swapped out for these dashboards. That's just like taking exercise 23.8, substituting this dashboard, answering the same questions, but getting students comfortable with the presentation of data that they're going to see in their careers, and also getting our accountant students comfortable with the fact that they're going to have to prepare data in dashboard form for managers and other people in their organizations. Claire, do you want to mention before I jump into this?
Yep, about 90% said that the Tableau dashboard activities were just about right, and 90% said that they might be a little bit too much.
Okay, thank you. Third of 4 elements we're going to talk about today, the video evolution, how that's evolved. I'm going to be pretty quick on this because you've seen this, but I want to mention a couple things just to reinforce their value. In terms of learning science, we know that long-term learning retention is 80% higher with videos than text. Okay, so I keep that in the back of my mind. We are 75% more likely to watch a video versus read today. That has its own implications, but again, it's just reality that we work within. And then finally, this is really interesting. Learning retention from a video is 25% higher when the video includes questions. So that's a big deal. So let me talk about what we've done in the new edition. We've introduced 3 kinds of videos. We call them concept overview videos or simply COVs. Need to know, which is NTK, there's the demos. And then we have hint videos that you and I are in control. We can assign them some of the time, all of the time. We can just turn them on and off for each individual exercise or quick study and so on. And you can see where these line up on the learning pyramid, with the highest probably being with the hint videos down here in practice by doing. Okay, let's jump in. Again, I'll be pretty quick. Concept overview videos, those are exactly what you think they are. They're little mini lectures, if you will, oftentimes a minute or 2 in length. This one is 2 minutes. And what's cool about that, if you remember that previous slide where the instructor can choose to ask a question, we now have these knowledge checks, and you can score them if you want. You can bring those points right into your grade book or not. It's up to you. I currently do at a very small percentage of the grade. And we know that students desire learning from these videos, so it fits their style. Also down here, I cut it off, but there's an explanation. So if a student does ask us, we're not out on a limb somewhere, the explanation, the solution, if you will, is right there for each knowledge check. The second thing has to do with, remember I talked about those need to knows for each block, and that's what's illustrated here. This one here is for equivalent units of production, but again, it runs through and gets us the equivalent unit of production plus the cost per equivalent unit. And you can see again, about 2 minutes in length, and they do exactly what you and I would expect. They're a demo. Third is a new comprehensive video that Jonathan and I created for the new edition. Again, these are longer in length because the nature of the beast, right? These are typically problems, multi-parts and so on. So they're much more all-encompassing problems. So they're obviously longer in length, but again, it's video, audio learning for the student. And then finally, there's these hint guided example videos. Again, those are the ones you turn off or turn on for individual assignments. They're available for a majority of our exercises and quick studies right now. And this one here happens to do with determining the job, the overhead applied to a job. Relevant on topic, and let the students pick and choose. Claire has a poll question.
Yeah, so would the concept overview videos, the need to know demos, and hint videos help your students learn? Go ahead and open that.
If you believe they would, answer A, yes, and B for no. And Claire, if you'd interrupt me when you have that.
Yeah, well, about 100% have said yes, so.
Okay, all right. The realities of the YouTube and TikTok world we teach in. There's also orientation videos for how you do assignments, how to do Tableau, how to do concept overview, general ledger software, and other things. Here's just 3 examples, but you get the idea. We try to make it easy for the student, but also you and I. Last big item, integrated Excel. Again, part of the evolution structure. Again, working with data and using tools that are available to us. A poll question. Claire?
Yep, so for your introductory accounting courses, you are A, not looking to add a few basic Excel skills, or B, you are looking to add a few basic Excel skills.
If you'd answer that, and Claire, interrupt me when you have that.
Yep.
Again, remember data analytics. This is the old definition that we always had, analytics visualization. The Tableau dashboards tend to focus on the graphical insights and analysis part. This section here, we're going to talk about next 5 minutes. We'll focus on inspecting, modeling, transforming data, and so on. And What we similarly did with Tableau, we have an Excel checklist. Now you'll notice, same things, right? We don't want to have students download Excel. We don't want students downloading Tableau. That's just a nightmare for you and I. We also don't expect any trading, so these are going to have to be self-contained and so on. So our approach is much similar. We're going to identify a question. This one here was cost of goods manufactured question. That's the first chapter in managerial. And then we're going to put that over into an Excel framework, and then we're going to have students use Excel formulas. With that, Jonathan is going to illustrate integrated Excel. Again, it's Excel, but you don't have to actually download anything. It's right in Connect.
All right, great.
Switch
So
that
what
over.
I'll do first really quick when Claire changes it over to me is I'll show you quickly how to find these integrated Excel resources right in Connect. So I'll show that very quickly, but everything's being recorded. So if I go too quick, don't worry about it. So to find them, you just go to your add assignment, you go to your question bank, right? You click on that, like I'm doing a new assignment, and they're going to be right up top, right? In accounting, integrated Excel assignments, and then they're available for each and every chapter. Okay, so with that, let me get out of here, and I will go back into my class, and I'll show you again how I've begun taking traditional assignments, okay, similar to how we talked about in the Tableau dashboard activities, in that I'm going to take traditional assignments like this one right here, and I'm going to, oops, sorry, that's a little bit too far back. Let me get up to the, sorry, traditional assignments like this, okay, and in here, here's an example of a traditional assignment. And in this one, students are asked to use their understanding of income statement relations in the merchandising chapter. And so like they have to solve for net sales. They have to understand how sales discounts and returns and allowances factor into net sales, and then how cost of goods sold is used to compute gross profit. Okay. Now, what I did in my class, just in this last semester, I've started the process of swapping that traditional assignment with an integrated Excel assignment. So what I'm doing right now is I'm opening integrated Excel right in my web browser. I'm not running Microsoft Excel, so there's no software needed. I'm actually running this on a Mac as well, so there's no problem with Mac, PC, Chromebook. If you can run Connect, you can run these integrated Excel assignments. And now another key thing I want to point out before I show you a demonstration is that students immediately get this notification when they get in here. And it's basically telling them they need to use an Excel formula. And this is something you can turn on or off as an instructor. But in my class, and I would recommend you to leave that on. And the reason is because if students aren't required to use a formula in these Excel assignments, they're going to grab their calculator right here, at least some of them. They're going to grab their calculator and just do their calculations right there and just fill in the numbers in Excel. So I require them to use just some very basic, the most basic Excel functions to do these assignments, okay? So as you can see now, this is the same assignment I had just showed you in that traditional assignment. So let's go ahead and start working on it, okay? So in this one, students have to calculate sales. So again, if they know those income statement relations, they'll know that they have to take net sales, add back in returns and allowances, add back in discounts, and that'll get them their original sales amount. And then also we're asking them to compute cost of goods sold, okay? And if they know how net sales and gross profit relate, they'll know that they'll have to take their net sales, subtract gross profit, and that'll get them that cost of goods sold amount. And they're well on their way to doing this assignment. Another cool thing, and this is something that's really not been available in other Excel solutions I've used in my course. So this is pretty cool. You can actually, and this again, something you can turn on or off as an instructor, and that's the check my work button. Okay, so I just clicked it, and students then get a positive green check mark that, yeah, they're on the right path, but also telling me that I still have some empty cells there I have to go back and finish. Another cool thing about these integrated Excel assignments, when I said we grade on formulas, it also allows many alternative formulas. So like what I mean by that is if any of us have ever used Excel, there's often many ways you can solve for an amount in an efficient and kind of effective way. So any kind of formula a student would use that would make sense, or at least would be a good and effective way to compute an amount, it'll grade it as correct. So let's take a look at sales. So if you remember on this one, all I did was add all those three numbers up. I did B8 plus B7, etc. But I could also did a sum function, right? Kind of one of the first, if I can grab it here. Okay, so I go sum, get my parentheses, select those three numbers, close my parentheses. I get the same number. Again, it's grading on formula. And again, we get a positive green check mark that's grading correctly. Another key thing is too, all these integrated Excel assignments that I have in my class, everything's feeding right into my gradebook. I'm not doing any manual grading with these integrated Excel assignments. So that's great. So again, another point is here too, students can save and return to the assignment later. You can see that's really key because I know a lot of my students will do half of it and then come back later and do more. So that's really cool. Let's take a look at a couple more here, okay? So here's another one, straight line amortization. So again, as we get into those kind of later chapters in our courses, you can kind of see how these integrated Excel assignments can be really useful. So this is just straight line depreciation. Now, if you cover effective interest amortization in your introductory course, there's integrated Excel assignments available for that too. I actually leave that to my intermediate course, but either one you're covering, even if you're using straight line, you can see how we could easily put in some Excel functions into this straight line kind of method and fill out the tables much faster than we could in Connect. Another point I want to make about this too is that in my class, I have students who are 18 years old, who are just fresh out of high school, who many of them have never really used Excel. And I also have students who have been in the workforce for 20 years, are really familiar with Excel and like using it and are kind of almost advanced users. And these integrated Excel assignments are great for both because for the introductory level, or the student who doesn't know much about integrated Excel, this provides a great solution because it allows them to get familiar with Excel, but in a very non-intimidating kind of environment, right? Everything runs right in their web browser, a very nice environment, and for them to learn introductory accounting. Now, for those advanced students, they actually appreciate being able to use Excel to answer their accounting assignments. So they love these too. So I think it's the best of both worlds for whatever kind of students you have in your class. So then again, here's another one. Here we use, this is for an installment note. You can see how we can use those percentages and start filling out this table, okay? Same thing, everything's auto-gradable, fills right in my gradebook. And so jumping ahead to managerial accounting, the same thing. Here's an example of a traditional assignment that I've now begun swapping in my class just as these integrated Excel assignments have become available. So we're going to ask the same question, but now in integrated Excel. And I won't open it up again because I think you get the point. It's basically the exact same assignment, but now you can do them in Excel. And as we get later into the managerial course, right, we can talk about using it to do departmental expense allocations, right? Those kind of intermediary calculations can be kind of tedious. Here we can use Excel formulas, use that dragging feature to drag the formulas, all fantastic. And again, obviously, you get even later net present value of cash flows near the end of a managerial course. Again, we can readily see how this will be a very good tool for our students. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over.
Okay. Claire, can I get control?
Yep, you should have control now.
All right, terrific. So you can see this looks familiar, right? Same thing, level 1, level 2. Take these problems, swap them for the Excel layout. Again, there's nothing too sophisticated with the
John, you're not
formulas.
sharing your screen.
Yeah, we can't see your screen.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I can't seem to grab the tool.
Sure.
Can you give me control?
Yeah,
Let me,
you should.
okay, I'm gonna go outside of my see if I can get control this way. Here we go. No? Okay. Got it.
All right, we can see it now.
Looks good.
Terrific. Okay, so as Jonathan showed you, there's nothing too sophisticated about these Excel formulas. I believe all of my kids entering college can handle them. So just swap them right out of material that we already are using in class. Poll question for that Claire wanted to ask.
Yep, this is our last poll question. So for your introductory accounting courses, integrated Excel activities are A, too much for your students, B, just about right, or C, too easy? I'm going to open it right up.
We're pretty much done. I just want to talk about some catch-all items in the last 4 minutes we have. This is, if you want to push the envelope a little bit, I know in terms of this evolution model, they're talking about critical thinking and analysis. We have a section in every chapter that does try to teach this critical thinking and analysis, involves problem solving, evaluating, decision making. And then we have material at the end of each chapter. All of those materials for Apple, Google, and Samsung questions, all in Connect, all auto-gradable, all in every chapter. And I might mention too, the other thing we're working on is, you remember the last 7, maybe 8 years, a lot of activity by accounting regulatory bodies, from revenue recognition to accounting for investments and so on and so forth, a lot of things. The last couple of years, it's quieted down. So what we're going to do is we have our current edition, but we're going to go out for 4 years. So you're going to be able to keep your current edition and your current layouts and your current syllabus for the next 4 years, because there's nothing pressing on the regulatory front. However, what we're going to do is, in the mid-edition, we're going to have some cool technology updates, and we're in the process of doing that now. They're not yet available, but we're getting there. We're going to have some new integrated Excel. This is going beyond what Jonathan talked about. Will involve some projects. We have some new Tableau. We may introduce algorithmics and so forth. We have some new Connect exercises in the test bank to make that more robust. Analytics projects, some new video features, some new Connect features, so on. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. But the book stays around for 4, but these technology updates that you can choose to adopt or not adopt will be available midstream. Last thing, I use Proctorio in my class. Jonathan does not. I like it because I have roughly 350 students. So it makes me feel better about the integrity of the exam itself. So that's available. You can talk to Claire or Steve, or if you want to get that further information. Last thing then, for takeaways. We talked about the textual thing, some pretty cool stuff there. Tableau dashboard, you can run with that right now. Videos, we're really happy with that structure right now. Integrated Excel, really cool stuff happening right now. And then these further evolution. I will mention, there's, for these Tableau, we got roughly 1.53 million views right now. That's incredible. So we and your colleagues are really going to town with these Tableau dashboard activities. With that, I think we're almost there. 1 minute left. So questions, comments, we're here.
Awesome. Finishing 1 minute ahead of time. I don't have any questions from my end. Steve, do you have any questions on your end?
I don't have any questions, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat or the Q&A at this time. So I do thank everybody for coming, and you can always reach out to the accounting team with any questions that you have, and we'll be sure to get back to you. And we appreciate your time spending it with us today. And John and Jonathan, thank you so much for your excellent presentation on all the resources and evolutions of the material.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to us. Emails here, phone numbers here. Always love to talk with you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
and just as
everybody.
a reminder, we'll be sending out the recording and the PowerPoint slides as a follow-up. So thank you again, John and Jonathan, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope everyone has a great weekend, almost weekend. All right. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.